All right. Hello to everybody that is here checking out Duke Paul of Bellatrix's fabulous class. Tonight, we are going to be covering a new episode. Hello, Your Grace. How are you?
Nope.
I'm going to say just a few words to everybody that is watching, and then I am disappearing and passing this off to the expert. So, for all of you watching, if you would like to ask questions, by all means do. Just add them into the comment box on the live stream, and we will try to get to all of the questions. If you can keep them on topic, that would be great. If you ask a question and it's not answered, it is definitely not personal. It's just a matter of time constraints. So we will try to get that answered for you one way or another if we can't do it here. I think that's about it on my part. Have I forgotten anything, Your Grace, or do you think we're good?
I'm ready to go.
All right, so he's officially ready. I'm going to disappear and I'm handing this off to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Duke Paul of Bellatrix. Been around since 1970 in the society, king a lot of times, and mainly I think as a teacher is where my best work is. So tonight we are going to be talking about the two teardrop techniques in my style. I have a striking technique called a snap, which you would probably all in some way or another know of. These are part of a group of techniques called returns. So the snap is a blow. The returns are what happens after you do that. How do you get it back to the target real fast? The one I covered last week was the teardrop return, which comes around and attacks the offside and has a bunch of variations. Tonight we're going to talk about the teardrop. The teardrop is once you've hit something, you yank it back and then it comes around in a teardrop shape and hits back at the target. So that's the teardrop here. And the other technique is the offside teardrop. Just swing here like that. The offside teardrop I had categorized as a secondary technique because it's a variation of the teardrop. What a teardrop can go into after it's come around that back curve. But we found out it was just so variable that I could do all sorts of things with it, and so I promoted it to a major technique, and here it is tonight. So I'd like to start off a little bit by going over a few concepts that I've covered in the previous presentations, because if you don't really have a grasp of those at all, then you're going to be a little bit lost for a while. Stance. I like a really upright stance. I mean, I never do anything but this. I'll lean sideways a couple times. I never lean forward. I never crouch. One of the big concepts in my style or system is commitment. And commitment, by that I don't mean I'm going to really work real hard. It's commitment to, like, you're leaning, so you're committed to a direction. If you want to do something that doesn't require you to move in that direction, you have to come back here and then do it, go somewhere else. Your opponent knows this if they've been trained in picking up these things. So you want to avoid it, hence the upright stance. Crouching is the same way. So you crouch down like this. Pretty much anytime you want to go anywhere, you have to go up first. And again, an opponent who's aware of this stuff is going to have an advantage. Leaning, a lot of people, you see when they're trying to get in range. So they're here like this or something, and they start leaning really slowly so they can get a little closer to you. Anybody that's really good is going to notice that. And then limited stances. Now, in limited stances, anything that requires your hand to be out front of you is a limited stance. There's only a certain amount of things you can do. If you're out here anywhere, you have a couple options. You can just simply do a push and snap the blade out on that side. Not very fast. It can be hard if you're real strong. If you're not real strong, no, it's not going to be. Or you can pull it around here and start the process of damaging your wrist until you need to have the operation. Or you can pull it back like this to cock it. Now that has a problem in that you just told your opponent what you're doing. That's what I call a tell. It's a good idea to have a stance that allows you to make it a number of varied attacks without tells. And one of the big tells is a motion that happens before the sword moves. That's a pretty hard cutoff. The sword is the first thing that should move in an attack. Because what's the opponent going to look at for a threat? It's your sword, not your foot, not your shoulder. So if you move anything else before that sword moves, that's a tell, and you give your opponent an advantage. So what I do is, instead of doing a tell, and the tell would be something like, you know, a shoulder fake like this, ground down, a lean to this side or something like this. All my tells in this system are full speed, full force. Basically, you can't tell it's not an actual strike until it misses you. So if I'm coming out with a snap and it's really not a snap, it's an offside teardrop, you don't know until right now. It just missed you, and now you find out it's not a snap. By that time, I'm about here and then into the next technique. So all my feints are full speed, full force. The other technique I want to talk about, because we're going to really get into attacks at the end of the class, is a slide step. So what this is, as you throw a snap, your weight goes down to your front leg. The front knee bends, and then as your weight continues forward, the sword has already been empowered by about there. You're not applying much in the way of power past that, or none. So you're out here like this, and you just let your knee bend forward and snap your front foot. So you'll see by these lines, we'll talk about them later. That's where I usually come in. I'll start here where I can come in range of the shield. And if I want to hit him, I'll just step in with the slide step. Alternately, I could come in from all the way back here and come in only far enough to hit the shield. That is an example of one of my feints. I'm coming in close enough to hit your shield, but I'm not going to hit you. But since I'm moving in from an outside range, one, you'll likely say, that's out of range, I don't have to worry about it. And then it's coming closer really faster than you think it should. And you'll react to it. Hardly anybody's going to just sit there and wait for the thing to hit their shield because they know it's not going to travel 6 inches more. Because if you look at these little lines here, the outside one here where I can reach the shield, and I will step into that from about the same distance out. But I have no problem coming to the front line on the same step. So you have to pay attention to them because maybe one of them's not going to be a fake. The next technique I want to talk about is the power waddle. This is a whimsical name I give to my footwork technique. I don't have all sorts of neat little footwork things that you have to step here or step up there. Basically, you waddle. It's like this. Your feet are always outside your knees. The knees are always outside your hips. You can turn around in all sorts of directions. And there's things like you can come around here. But you always want to be able to push back when you step or push somewhere else than where you're going. That just makes things a lot easier. And the last technique I want to talk about is the thrust execution. The We covered this last week, and there's two really main things in this. One, if you are swinging a blow in an arc in front of you, and you pull across that circle, it stops. It just stops dead. You're coming around here, and I'll pull back like that. And that's lined up for a thrust right to your opponent's face. So around here, real easy. Or you can go the other way. It's a little tougher, but I use them both. Okay, so let's get into the teardrop. So the teardrop starts as soon as you hit there. You do not wait for a bounce. Sometimes you don't get a bounce. But what you do is as soon as you hit, you start pulling the sword back. Now this is a little revolutionary. I'm the one that came up with the hips motion to rotation to power your swords one way or the other. And then about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I realized I wasn't doing that anymore. What I am doing is, we covered this last week for the single hip, it's a headbutt. Basically, I use my core to move my upper body back like I'm headbutting somebody behind me. It's more like a shoulder butt. It's back your shoulder you really want to move. And if I'm doing it fast, you'll not even notice it. It's like a ½ inch, but it's really quick. And at the same time, I'm pulling back not like this, but like this. I want to get my sword out so I have room to maneuver it without tying it up. And I want to provide a large radius for the rest of the technique, which involves pulling it in a bit. So all the teardrops on this side, usually you'll see when somebody's here like this, they pull the sword back, they'll come up like this and then come down. I do it the other way around, down and then up. So here like this, I do the yank back. Now right about here, when my sword gets right out from my side, I start sort of pulling it towards my opposite leg. So right here, I'll make the weight move to my opposite leg. That way my whole body is amplifying the power of the sword, which is carried around the circle. When you carry it around that circle, big circle, small circle, it speeds up. So it's back like this, you do like that. It's pretty quick. Now there are a lot of variations on this thing. And the teardrop is probably the hardest technique that I teach. The timing involved is pretty tight, and the body movements are likewise pretty tight. So anytime during this thing, if you have a question, you want me to go over something again, just write a question in, and Vesper will interrupt me, and then I'll answer it right there. Now a little bit more about the teardrop, without going into its variations yet. So I'm out here like this. I can come back and go right back to the same target, or any other, higher or lower. And one of the variations is what we call a short teardrop. That's after you've already thrown a teardrop, you get to throw another one. So you throw one, and then you do double tap, I guess some people are calling it. And this is quick, so I'll tell you how to do that a little bit later. Okay, so the first variation I want to go through is what's called the high return. Most of my teardrops, even if I'm up here, I'll come down about waist level with my hand. The sword can come up and go down, depending. You can come around and do a real narrow teardrop, like you squish it together, or you can do a big one like this, come around. Both are useful. Both are really useful. So when I'm coming down for going to a high target, I'll probably do that compressed one, so I can come right back to the same place. When I go through a low one, I'll come around and go down like that. And you might be thinking, well, that's a lot more motion on the blade but it's getting faster as it goes around it. So you're not losing anything. Basically, what you're doing is you've got the force going around a circle. If you can pull your handle off on a tangent to the circle, basically a tangent is a line that touches the circle that's at right angles with one of the radius. So if I want to go to a high target, I'll come over here. This is the tangent. If I want to go low, then I'll come around on this tangent and go down. So the high return, instead of coming down here with my hand, I'll leave it about here, about a foot under my shoulder. So it'll hit me like this, it'll come like that. It's useful. And you can also do the same double tap technique with the high thing as well as the low thing. So I come in here like that. Again, I'll show you how to do it in a bit. The high return itself has an option. When you're coming back here, right as your hand comes up around that back curve, you have an option. If I want to hit forehand, I essentially aim with my little finger, with my forefinger. If I want to go overhead into a teardrop, I aim with my thumb. So right about here, going full speed, you don't know whether I'm coming this side or that side. Every time you can introduce a little bit of choice in the matter, or make your motion a little unclear, that gives you an advantage in time because your opponent has to make that decision. And generally, unless they're really good at reading the flow, they have to think about it. And when you think about it, everything starts to slow up on their side, which gives you an advantage. Because watch the next few variations and you will see. The next variation, and this is probably the easiest one. This is a Molinet. So I've come into range, and what I'm doing is when I aim the snap, I usually aim with the blade about the same. People call it a flat snap. It used to bother me a lot because I don't throw it flat like that. I throw it like this. When I throw it, it evens out at the end. It doesn't go out flat at the beginning. It doesn't really matter, so I don't really care anymore. But if I want to throw the Molinet, what I do is instead of coming out here, I come out with the tip just slightly below the hand. I mean like an inch. Because then as it gets out further away from me, it makes more of a difference. And I'll come across over the top of the head, skip off the shield, for instance. If I don't want to come into range, I'll skip it off the shield and do the same thing. And what you do is you just let the sword come around the circle and come back into the strike. So slowly, it's just a little fast. Like I said, you can skip it off the shield, or you can actually go over their head. And you don't have to come in range either. I mean, I can step into that front line and miss them. If anything comes that close to your face, you're going to do something about it. So you're going to get a reaction. Now, interesting little thing about this. Well, let's go back a minute. If you imagine a big horizontal circle going around here like this, and make it into a tube, right about here, you sort of insert the tip of your sword into that, and it comes around that circle. Now, right there, as it starts to go back, it's got all the momentum in the world. You do not have to bring your hand back with it. Matter of fact, if you do, you'll slow it down a little bit. When it comes around that circle and starts heading back, you actually push your hand forward. And then the Molinet gets really fast. Okay, that's the first one. Now, all my techniques sort of look alike. So that looks like a snap, but it's not a snap. It's a Molinet. It looks like a snap going in, but it doesn't turn that way going out. The next one I have, I call it the shallow S, because I have a technique that I came up with in the wrap variations, which I'll go over next time. So you're going into a wrap, and you're going to come up and turn your hand over and hit something. This one, you don't turn your hand over, you come across to your other shoulder and come out like that. And it can give you a little delay, you can change the direction in that. And it also looks like something called the X, which comes up here and goes down like that. This is a shallow S. So it's really shallow. The blade moves about like that. So basically it comes in here and comes back this way. So right here, you're pulling it into it. Right when your hand gets here, you start turning your body back the other way. Because by the time you get there, the blade's going to be there. So it's just out. Your hand never goes more than about this far over. But going this far over is probably good because it gives you a little time for your body to react. Because by then, the sword is moving like a bat out of hell. And it's hard to catch up with it sometimes. Now, I've never found this particularly useful as killing somebody. There are plenty of other things that work a little better. What this does is it makes a real good entry technique. So you're coming from out of range, moving into range. You've already used what looked like a snap to draw your opponent's attention over like this. And then the blade comes in from the other side. Now, yeah, you can kill it if somebody's slow, but generally what happens is this, and then you get this jumble of sword, shield, head out of position right there. And it makes it tough to deal with. You get 1 or 2 free shots then. So coming in like that, come in like this, now I'm here and my sword is cocked. And your opponent should be something like that. So it's a useful technique. Now that one that allows those 2 really quick blows in succession, that's the short teardrop. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing that same pullback that I usually do, except I'm abbreviating a lot. Basically, I just want the hand to get back here. And then I let the rotation and pull of my body and move the sword back in. So it's just like this, and you turn this way. You turn 90 degrees. So if I'm doing my regular return here like this, it has to go around this big circle. If I'm doing that return and I turn my body like this, it's already at the back. And it's got a little bit of motion, and your body weight turning and moving will pull it around that circle. And then so you get these real short. If you want to try this, try pushing with this arm and right here pull back the other way. So you push like that. And you can do it anywhere up and down on that side. You can change from low to high, high to low. You can start either way, do 2 in the middle. It doesn't matter. Very, very fast. It leaves you slightly out of position in that you're really turned to one side. But as you get better at it, most of the turn, or the turn rather, is accompanied by another little jerk. It comes back, and then your body is moving back towards that corner in a rotation and a weight shift. We call that redefining back. So I've actually do that in most of my techniques, the return techniques that come back on that side. Well, both sides actually. So generally straight back would be back that way. Well, I'm redefining back to about here on my regular returns. So my regular returns don't come back here, they come out like this. It improves the timing and the positioning of the blade in your body. And on the other side, if you go on this side, or you're coming back from a single hip, and you're pulling back, it goes out there too. It goes to the other side. And then we just do it in a more extreme manner for the short teardrops. The regular redefines are 30 degrees to one side or the other. This one's 90 degrees.
Your Grace.
Yes,
We do have a request if you are willing and able.
sure.
Would you mind showing the offside teardrop facing the camera?
Offside.
Yes, please.
Uh, I will. I was just getting to the offside
Oh,
teardrop.
look at you. All right.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
disappear now.
okay. Good question, though. So I'm here. A regular teardrop would look like this. An offside looks like you come back into this and then you go into it. So look like this. So it's up here, cross, and in. And some of these techniques, like this one, has two curves in it. One's over here and one's over here. Both of those are speed power generators. So you're taking the output of one and going into another. So by the time you get here, it's going awfully fast. And you don't have to come down, that gets into the variations, but so the way you actually get into this to do it, you're doing a teardrop. So you've come across back here like this. You don't bring your hand up here like this to come across. You leave your hand low like this, but you make your tip go right across the ice. If you come down here, down where the shield is, your opponent will lose sight of it for a while and won't really react properly. The reaction you want is their defense turning over to here, because that's where they're expecting the hit in. And if you go too fast, they don't have time to move over there. So you come around here, you leave your hand low and put your tip across there, and then your hand comes down to right about here where the arm is straight across, and it stays there. Then the blade comes around, and just as it starts coming up that back curve, you can either rotate, take a step, or take a step with the other foot, either foot. So it comes down here and then like that. The thing what you want to do is, remember what I said a little earlier in the Molinet? When the Molinet is coming around that circle and it starts going back, you can just push your hand there. Well, the same thing's going on here. You're coming down here. This is a big circle. It goes around like this. So you're coming around that circle and you're going to cut it short. But this is applying all the power. You don't need to move your hand with it. It's going as fast as it wants to go, and your hand has nothing much to do with it. If you let it go back with it, it actually slows it down. Same thing as the other one on the other side. So if you hold it there, just come right in like 6 inches outside and just a little in front of your foot. Stop your hand, and the thing just comes around your hand. And then you can, like I said, turn your body, step in from the other side. Now you don't have to go down on these things. You can actually go up on them too. So I'm coming here like this. You let it turn over hard like this, low, rather than letting it come up here to go to the head. You get the speed coming forward and you have an angle that comes up. And right there, it's going to be flat across where you're going to hit. So it's just pretty easy one. Now, that one itself has some variations. You can go into a Molinet or a thrust. Let's do the thrust first because that's easy. So I've come up here and I'm going across this way. And if I want to do a thrust right there, I'll just pull it back. So from the other way, you'd be coming up here and then you just pull it back here. The rotational momentum goes away and you can line up for a thrust. The other one is a little odd. Because almost all the Molinays in our game are counterclockwise. Like the one I showed you first off the teardrop, come up here, that's a counterclockwise motion. This one is a clockwise motion. So you come up down with the teardrop, you come up like this around, and you just come around. And of course, you can hit anywhere on that side. Probably gonna be so fast, you're not gonna be able to move it down much, so head's probably a better target. So again, you come down here, you pull it back high, you just let it go around into that. Need some more questions, or I'm gonna go through these all fast. And the other interesting variation in this is, since your sword is rotating clockwise, you can come around into a single hip. And then you have all the variations that the single hip has. And there are about 6 of them. Okay, the next one is overhead to high target. This is a real strange one. So when you swing across like this with your sword at this angle, you're defining a plane of rotation that is diagonal. If you follow that plane around, it comes back to here. And that's the other variation. You come through and you come around to here. So when the blade starts up like this, this looks exactly like any of the teardrops that hit on this side. So your opponent has to make a decision here, and then it comes up around and hits here. Then they have to make another one because you don't have to really hit there. But when you put together too many variations, which are essentially feints, even if you get really good at them, your opponent's going to basically get tired of waiting for you and just swing at you, and may hit you or may screw up your technique. But in any case, it makes it so it doesn't work real well. But the other variation is sort of interesting, because when you come around, when you're coming around this curve here, you're basically coming right out at the same motion that a teardrop would do. So a teardrop would be making this motion here, which looks like about here, coming around like that. So teardrop to there, offside teardrop to there. So when you get there, you have all the variations that a teardrop has, the regular teardrop. So you can go back into the same ones. So you can go from come to here, and you can actually go back into the offside teardrop and do one of those. Or you can come around here and then go back again into just do a Molinet. You can do that to hit them with. Just come around here and pop. There we go. You can go into any one of the other teardrops. So you come across here like this. You can do the shallow S. You can. I don't know if you can do the short teardrop. So let's see. Come around here like this. That'd be hard, but you could do it. And then you can go back into the offside again. Again, you're leaving your tip up there and pulling it across so that it gets your opponent's attention. And while your hand is going down here to pull it into something else. Or you can just leave it high and come back that way. You can actually just have this little infinity sign thing going here, which is interesting, but actually sort of useless. Like I said, if you do too many feints, even if they're full speed, full force, your opponent's going to basically get tired of waiting for you and swing at you. Okay, that's this next one. This is probably probably the fastest technique I've ever come across. Maybe that Molinet is faster, but this one, considering the territory it covers, is pretty quick. Got the right one here? Let me check here. Okay, this is one of the ones that may be one step too many, even though it's really fast. So you come out of your teardrop and you do the offside teardrop. And then you just come right around into the teardrop again. And you do it, let's say, a shot to the head. So it'll come here like this, over here, and up like that. The thing is, it's so really fast. So it's here. Do that again. So it's, you can change your position in between the two blows. That's a nasty one. The single hip one's worse because it leaves out a step. Single hip one just. Okay, so any questions about teardrops? Anything you want me to repeat or go over again?
There are no questions as of now, but that doesn't mean they won't come in.
Okay, well, come up with questions. I'm going to just continue, and I'll stop anytime a question comes in. Okay, now I'm going to get away from the technique itself, or the techniques themselves, and I want to get more into attack techniques. One of these is what I call parallel circles. I just made lines because it wastes tape and I don't really need it, but consider two circles around your opponent. The first circle is where, if you're standing on that with your front foot, you can hit your opponent. So if I got my toe on that line, I can swing and hit my opponent. Basically, one step back from that, I can swing and I can hit my opponent's shield or pass over. What you can do, it's like a series of feints, except they're real attacks. It's just you're going to do them all from out of range. So I can step into here, and that should have drawn my opponent's response somehow. And then I'll go into a single hip and I'll step on that same line. And then I'll do an offside teardrop and stay on that same line. I'm missing them all the time because I'm out of range. But then I'll come in here and miss, do an offside teardrop. Sorry. I'll come through and miss, step over there, offside teardrop, stuff, and I'll step into this line. The only time I've actually been in range, coming out of here, I don't step in there until right here. That's the only time in that whole maneuver that I've been in range. I'm out here, I come into this line, come around to this line, come around to this line, come around to this line, and there we go. So the idea is to get your opponent to commit to blocking one of your swings. And it doesn't matter which one. If you see they're not going to block the first one, you can set them up to not block the second one and let that give you an advantage. But during all of this, you are out of range. And being out of range is a nice thing to have. I was watching one of the Antarian Knights, Sir Rodericker, and he was fighting an opponent who was on his knees. And he was doing exactly what I said, except he wasn't doing much swinging. So he would come in and he'd swing here like this, and swing here, then he'd come right up to the line, but not quite on it. So was just going to miss here. And again, he's out of his opponent's range by that much too. So like there, he pulled it back, and then he swung for a leg blow, and right here he bent his front knee, and I got it into range. So he was only in range from about here to about here to about here. I thought that was cool. So if you can get your opponent to think your attack is going to hit them, or at least raise an element of doubt in their mind that it might hit them, you've gained some both positional and time advantage. Because as they're going, even if they just make a little teeny motion towards blocking your shot, that's still time. They have to recover from that position. That takes time, and that takes time. In the meantime, your blade might be 2/3 of the way through the next blow, and they're going to have a good time trying to get over to block that. That said, you don't want to do all your various attacks like this where the second blow hits a shield or her shield. You want to go for targets. It doesn't matter if you completely faked them out on your snap, which turned into an offside teardrop. If you just come up, hit the middle of the shield, you got to keep them moving one way or the other. For instance, so I do my slide step into the outer circle. Okay, I just get in range of the shield, and my opponent turns that way just a little bit or slightly to block that, and it's not. And they see the sword going up here, so they start to move this way, and it comes back in again. There's a mole in it. Or it goes down here, and now they're turning this way, but the tip's up, and maybe you can get them like that. You can also step way the heck to the side on that. So I can come across in the offside teardrop, and right here I can step all the way over here. Or I can step all the way over here. So if you get somebody that doesn't protect the inside of their shield foot, you can come right on the inside of the thigh with that one. So all these things, one of the things I do to make this, or two things I do. One of those techniques fits into almost all the rest of them. So the teardrop fits into the offside teardrop, which fits into the various things going around. Obviously, you can't get an offside teardrop going into a single hip because they're rotating backwards in different directions. But they're made to transition into the other ones. The way that works is if you've got a circle, got a blade coming around a circle, you can raise or lower that thing without really bothering anything. The rotational vector, and for those of you that I haven't explained this to, a rotational vector is force traveling around in a circle. You also have straight vectors which go in and out. So you can combine those to do weird things. But if they're going around in a circle, the sword really doesn't care if it's going around in a circle this way or this way or this way. But on the end, when you pull it into something else, it really makes a difference in how it's going to hit and where it's going to hit. And you can also, if you're doing these circles, you can also curve them around. So I'm coming here like this. I can't pull it down like this, but I can make it go where it wants to go, and then just stop my hand, and it starts going around and backwards. So we'll just come down here. You stop your hand, it rotates around the hand. So when it's doing here, it's rotating around your body. You're going into a smaller circle and you're going around another direction, or you can just continue, it just goes faster. So that's sort of an interesting concept, you know. You're going in a circle here, and you come out of it into another circle going the same direction. Now you're going half again as fast. Interesting little concept. And the other thing is, how many times you watch tournaments and you watch people and you see a lot of really fast two-blow combinations. Just really fast. Anything as fast as I can do anything with my techniques. You can get away with it for two, but what I see a lot of people doing is they strike here and come around really fast that way. And then they try to do the third one and they're out here and their body's leaning out and they can't really swing, so they just fall out of range. And I see this over and over and over again. When you're doing my techniques, you don't do that. You have to maintain a very upright posture. And since you have that upright posture, all you have to do is change your steps with the power wobble. So I'm coming around like here. I've come around here with my big fast one, and I step over this way. If you're doing it wrong, you lean out, and you just lost everything. You lost position, you lost power. But I just take a longer step. I'm still standing up, and I can do anything I want. That's really important. I mean, if you can start, I had two very accomplished fighters. One of them was an Ontarian Duke, and the other one, he left Ontario and went to Ethelmark, and now he's an Ethelmark Duke. So I had them working together, and I was making them throw 3-blow combinations. And then we went to 4-blow combinations. And for the first little bit, it was just driving them absolutely nuts because they had been ingrained in leaning this way or the other way. And you simply don't have to do that. Okay, now the last topic I want to go into is commitment swings. So in my definition, anything that looks like a striking technique and doesn't hit you can be a commitment swing. Now, when I use the name commitment swing, it's not referring to my commitment, it's referring to my opponent's commitment. So I've stepped in out of range, and now I'm in range, and I make them commit to blocking that thing. I make them basically turn over like this. And then it misses. They're now committed to that direction. My sword's over here somewhere now. And they don't know where it's going to go because they're looking that way. So then they look back. So they see it coming over here and it's going down. So they quickly change their defense to here, down like that. So we're leave this up there, down to block that. And it's actually coming in high. So I've got a commitment from them in that direction, followed by a commitment in that direction. And my blow is actually coming around into a Molinet or into a shallow S, one way or the other. And commitment swings and strikes are thrown a little bit differently. If you're going to strike with a snap, you're basically aiming like you're throwing a bullwhip. It's going that way. If you're throwing any kind of commitment swing where you're not going to hit, you don't let your arm extend as far. So if I'm throwing a snap, my arm will come all the way out to here. If I'm throwing any commitment swing that's looking like a snap and not going to, my arm only goes out to there. Because I'm pulling it short. Or I might be letting going out, but I'm not really aiming at them. I'm aiming past them. You can really see this on a thrust. So if you're thrusting somebody, you're actually coming right into the target. You're right here. But telling the difference between that thing that's going to hit you and that thing that's not going to hit you, you just can't. You can't tell. You can't tell until it doesn't hit you. And that's a little bit late in the game to figure out what's going on. Okay, so any other questions?
No questions right now.
Okay, we about good on time, or shall I?
We are good on time. You can keep going if you'd like.
One thing I sort of missed here on the teardrop is moving around when you're actually doing the teardrop. So the only thing you can pretty much do with a snap, plain forward blow, is once you've applied the power, you can allow your foot to step forward. You can do that goofy foot also. You just have to go like this. You can actually do it with the back foot going forward, but you have to do it after you've applied the power. So if you're going to step with your back foot, that has to happen. Now the blade is ballistic, meaning I'm not applying power anymore. It's just flying on its own. And as it flies, your arm extends, you can take that step to give you a little more distance. Otherwise, you have to step with the other foot. And that works really nice because as you step, it pulls your blade forward, makes it harder. On the teardrop, you're going here now, you can do a lot of things. When it's coming back this way, you're basically pulling it back away from the target. You can angle where you're going to go. You come down here, you come down here, like this. So you can let that backwards pull your stance way over here. And come around from somewhere they didn't think you could get to. You know, when somebody's really tensed up like this, and you just did a couple of things that confused them, and now you're over here. And I have seen this happen where I've done this to somebody, and they actually, when I finally get ready to hit them, they're like this, and they look over at me when I hit them. Now you can step the other way. You can, instead of just stepping right in on the snap, you can actually step way over here like this. So if I step way over here like this, so when I do a slide step in, usually I'm angling right off the shoulder here. So I come at an angle like this. I can choose to step out so far that I'm going to have to swing sort of sideways, like this. The nasty thing about this is as my blade comes back, I'm going to use it to square up from 90 degrees here. Your opponent now has a rather unfortunate choice to make. They can allow me to attack from the side with no real good defense, or they can turn towards me. So that blade is coming in at them here. They can let me hit them somewhere, help something catches or miss. Or they can start turning this way. This means they are committing to a rotation in this direction. Now, what happens when this thing here doesn't hit and I move over here? Now what do they do? Single hip is really nasty for this. Especially because you got one to thrust where you pull it in. You don't have to pull it straight back. You can pull it where you want to go. So I come across at a single hip like this. I'm pulling it back and I step all the way over here. If I've gotten my opponent to even think about blocking that side, I've got their whole side open here for a thrust. Okay, I think that's about it.
Perfect. All right. Well, it looks like questions are quiet for the time being, but I'm sure people are welcome to reach out to you directly. Is that right?
Absolutely. You can get a hold of me, even if you're one of my Facebook friends, you can do that. Bellatrix Fighting School, there's a Bellatrix Fighting group now that's associated. That's more for conversations. You can get me anyway like that, and I'll be glad to answer you. And if you want to set up a one-on-one Zoom session, I'll set up one of those with you, and we'll work it through and answer your questions and show you how to use it.
You're the best ever. Thank you so much. And you will be back with us a week from next Monday, right? So 2 weeks from today?
And
Perfect.
that will be wraps.
Oh, yes. I love wraps.
And wraps won't take the whole time, so then I will go into, I have two appendices in the book. One's called tips and one's called tells. And I'm going to go into the tips one. And if I get through that, then I'll continue into the tells one.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been a pleasure as always.
Likewise, and thanks for setting this up, Vesper. It's really
Absolutely.
great.
Thank you for sharing with us. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Bye.